Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Now let's welcome our main speaker for tonight, Kay.
Hi, I'm Kay, and I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Jody for asking me to speak tonight, and I want to thank Kelly for coming also and speaking tonight. And say welcome to the people that are new. One thing you can be sure of is that we've all been new. And actually, this place has a lot of special significance to me because this used to be, many years ago, the Culver City Alano Club, which was now where Sony is, on Washington and Overland, where the Sony Studios is. There used to be a little yellow clubhouse called the Culver City Alano Club, and then it later became this. And that's where I got sober. So whenever I come back here to either be at a meeting or see someone get a cake or speak whatever, it's like coming home. So it has a really special place for me. You know, Kelly, you were talking about how even being sober a long time, how, you know, if you're an alcoholic, you're an alcoholic, and it just doesn't go away. And I'm an alcoholic, and I'm a big fan of Starbucks coffee, as probably most of us are. And I was driving today, and I saw this billboard, and it's Starbucks liqueur. I know. I saw that, and I thought, oh, my God, Starbucks liqueur. And I used to love, like, Kahlua, which would be, I guess, Starbucks liqueur, coffee with alcohol in it. But oh, man. Anyway, so once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But something interesting, too, happened the other day. I was at this meeting, and I thought this was very profound. There was this man who looked to be, I kid you not, 102. I mean, he was an old gentleman. And sure enough, he was old. He was like 91. And but this is the interesting part, he was taking a cake for 1 year. And we all kind of thought to ourselves, you know, I mean, if you can kind of do it to 90, stick it out. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. But here's the interesting thing, is we asked him, maybe it was rude of us to do it, but we did. My friend and I said, you know, what got you sober at 90? And he said, you know, before I die, I want to know what it's like to live life. I thought, right. And some of us want to know what it's like to live life at 90, and others 17. For me, I was 22. And again, I don't think it matters what our stories are like. I was also watching something on KCET the other night about prison. And it was really interesting, about the LA County prison and the women's prison. And they were saying that 80%, now I never went to prison. I did get arrested a couple times, but I never went to prison. But they were saying that 80% of everybody in prison are alcoholics or drug addicts. And I thought, ooh, that's a large percentage. And I thought, well, how true? Because that's really what Kelly also said. That's what happens to us. If we don't get sober, we don't have a lot of big choices out there. You know what I mean? We either go nuts or we end up in prison. And there was this very small group on this little KCET special. They were these guys. They had the little light in their eye, and everybody else, they were having gang wars in prison. They were getting sicker and sicker and sicker because they were getting further and further and further away of being human beings because of where alcoholism and drug abuse had gotten them. Except there was this one little group, and they weren't getting chips, but they were getting little certificates that they had fulfilled 3 months of this little course. And they were so happy that they had gotten 3 months of this little course, whatever that course was, I don't know. But it was the same principle of getting a 3-month chip. They had done something for once in their life that was hard, that was against their nature, which meant not getting loaded no matter what. They were doing that. Sure, they were in prison doing it, but they were doing it because other people were getting loaded in prison. And it was like, wow, you know, where you get the message and when you get the message is such a miracle, isn't it? And my mother, I went to a family reunion last weekend, and my parents, they're not alcoholics, so they don't understand. And they used to say to me, "Oh, we're so proud of you because you picked yourself up by your bootstraps." And as we know, we don't pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. If we had them, we wouldn't know where they were. In other words, we don't. None of us here are like, let's fix our lives. It's not. It wasn't like that for me. For me, it was. I was once. I was a wino. I was about 22, and I don't want to tell my story in reverse, but this is how it's coming out. But I had been drinking for about 4 years, and prior to that, I'd been doing drugs for about another 4 years. And I was 22 years old, and it was a hot summer in October 1974. It's a long time ago. And I was sitting in my bedroom looking at the mirror, and I was smoking a cigarette, and I was drinking my Gallo. And I was so drunk, and I was doing what I did every single night of my life. I was not one that had variety. I liked routine. My life got this small, and it was fine with me, because anything beyond that was way too much to handle. And I was listening to this album that I listened to every single night. It never changed. It was Joni Mitchell's Court and Spark. And I was listening to this album, and I was smoking a cigarette, and I'm drinking my Gallo, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm kind of rocking and humming, and I've got makeup on top of last month's makeup, and the hair is matted. And I looked in the mirror, and all I said was, "God help me. Just God help me." I was not praying. I was not thinking that God would hear this. I was just exhaling off of the cigarette. That was it. But like all of us that are here, and it's with some of us it's dramatic, and with others it's sort of a back door, but we got here, and this is our little window of opportunity. And I have a little fantasy that God was saying, "Are you ready?" And all I said was, "God help me." The very next night, and I had not known a sober moment for quite some time. I was a very sick young person. I was going to Santa Monica Junior College, which I did a lot. I would always do night number 1. Never did night number 2, but I was really good at night number 1. And I was starting Santa Monica College again, and I was getting out of my car at the same time that this young girl was getting out of this blue van. And she looked at me, and I looked at her, and we started walking through the campus, and she said, "Are you lost?" And I said, "Yes, I don't know how to get to my class." And she said, I'll help you. And she said, "What class are you taking?" And I told her. I said, "What class are you taking?" She said, "Oh, I'm not here to give a class." She said, "I'm here to give a lecture on alcoholism and drug abuse." I said, "For it or against it?" I didn't know that. But now this is the very next day after I said, "God help me." And what happened is this young woman who just happened to be giving a pitch and just coincidentally happened to be walking through the campus and coincidentally happened to be parked next to me, said, "Michael, I got to go. I've got to go speak. Give me your phone number." She didn't give me hers. She said, "You give me yours." And I gave her my number. Now, I don't know why she asked for my number. I thought it was very odd. But I gave it to her, and the next day I was on the front lawn with my roommate's 3-year-old son, on the front lawn, because he and I would get in debates. We would have arguments, intellectual discussions. And because emotionally I was the same age as he was, totally. And the phone rang, and it was her. And she said, "Are you sober?" And I said, "Well, no." She said, "Well, are you sober enough to meet me at the Marriott Hotel at LAX?" And I said, "Yes." Now, I don't know about you, but everything with me in life, everything, was contempt prior to investigation. Even when I was little and my family would say, "We're all going to go to Disneyland. Do you want to go?" And no. Because anything that I hadn't done yet was too much to handle. I liked, if I'd done it before, okay, maybe. But if I hadn't done it yet, it was like, ooh, can't handle that. I couldn't handle anything new. So that I said yes to her, was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself? I said yes, and I showed up, and here was this girl who some of you may know. But anyway, I said to her, I said, and she was talking about AA and being an alcoholic, and I said, well, I am identifying with what you're saying, but I can't be an alcoholic. I'm 22. I just can't be. And she said, well, I hate to disappoint your theory. She said, but I'm 17 years old. And she goes, I got 2 years clean and sober. And it was June G. And a lot of you might know who June is. Some of you may not. She's got 32 years now or 33 years now. But anyway, she had 17. She was 17 years old then and had 2 years clean and sober. And she said, would you like to get sober? And I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I knew I couldn't do what I had been doing. And so we went to the Culver City Alano Club, and that was in October of 1974. Now, I did not get sober that year. That first year, I was one of those people that would put in about 3 months. I would put in about 3 months, and I was very attracted to Alcoholics Anonymous. I loved the stories. We had some wonderful speakers that he has CDs there, the Chuck C's and the Norm Alpes and Gail Wilson's and just all these great people. So I was very attracted to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't want to do the work. I thought it was really great and it was fun, and I liked coming to the meetings, and I liked all the peripheral stuff, but I just wasn't going to do the work that you had to do because I was different. You might have to work the steps and you might have to do that, but for some reason I don't have to. I was going to be one of those little losers that comes in and out and in and out and in and out. And frankly, that's exactly what I was. And I use the term, it's a strong term, and I only use the term loser because when you've been around here a while, you know better. You've heard too many people stand here at speaker meetings or at participation meetings telling you that have the same disease you do. If you want what we have, you've got to do what we did. And if you don't, pay the price. But if you want what we have, you've got to do what we did. And I would hear that, but I thought, nah, not me. My case is different. So I would put about 3 months of sobriety in. Then I would go out with the one person who did not know I'd come to AA, and we'd go out to lunch. And we would order Mexican food, and he would order a margarita, which I never even drank. But he'd say, do you want a drink? And I'd say, no, I don't drink. And then the drink would come, and I'd start thinking about how that June, that girl that brought me to AA, the night before, would be reading me the big book by candlelight in her little apartment on Overland in Culver City and feeding me Snickers bars and tea with honey in it because I was like flipping out all the time just to bring my sugar down. And I thought, don't think about that right now. And his drink would come, and I reached across the table and I took his. Because at that moment, the drink was always more important than anything else, because we're addicts, we're drug addicts, and we're alcoholics. And for us, we have no sense. It's get me loaded. And I'd reach across the table and have her drink. And then I'd come back and I'd buy this wonderful Serenity Prayer necklace with the praying hands. You could see it from the back of the room. And I would wear this with pride, and I would 12-step all my alcoholic aunts and uncles. And I would come back, and I'd hear again, if you want what we have, you have to do what we did. And I thought, well, maybe I don't have to. Because I was working in the music business at that time. We designed album covers, and I thought, well, if you work in insurance or, I don't know, it must be different for what I do. So I would go out with my business partner, and he would have a little joint in his ashtray. And I'd see that little joint, and he'd say, do you want it? And I'd say, no, I'm in AA. And then I'd see that joint, and he'd look away, and I'd take it, and I'd put it in my pocket, and I'd go smoke it later. And then I'd come back again. And then I had my tooth pulled, and I had 4 wisdom teeth pulled, and the dentist gave me codeine. Now, I don't know about you, codeine is not even a fun high. It's not even fun. It makes you sick, but it's a high. And so they doled the codeine out to my sponsor, and I thought, well, I just better see where she puts that in case there's a rainy day. And the rainy day came the moment she left the room, and I saw the codeine, and I took it back. So for the first year, I would, like I said, I'd do about 2 months, and for about a year. And then finally, there's an old saying around here, and it doesn't matter when it happens. Some people get it after 10 years of in and out. One of the people I admire the most in Alcoholics Anonymous could not get sober. She would go in and out for 15 years. And she finally got sober and died when she had like 30 years sober and a wonderful life and a changed life and all the promises that we get. But for me, it took about a year. And there's an old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I don't know. One day I heard this woman, and she was talking, and she said, "Did you slip again?" And I said, "Yeah." And I kind of had a smirk on my face, and she said, "Everybody leave the room. I want to talk to her alone." And she said to me, she goes, you know, Kay, I've heard your pathetic little story. And she said, how do you feel when you're out there? How did you feel when you were getting loaded? And how do you feel when you slip and you come back and you slip and you come? How do you feel? So I thought, well, what does she want to hear? You know, because again, up to this point in time, and all of my real emotions, any real emotions that I ever had, came strictly as a result of working these steps and a lot of time in this program. So I did not, when people would ask me questions about how I felt, I hadn't a clue. I don't know. So I thought, well, what does she want to, it was always, what do you want to hear? And then I would know how to respond. So I thought, what does she want me to say? So I said, well, Jerry, I felt not a part of, you know, I thought of all the one-liners I'd heard. I felt less than. I certainly wasn't putting first things first. You know, just anything to shut her up. And she said, Kay, she said, did you ever feel lonely when you were out there? Did you feel lonely when you were alone and drinking and drunk in your car parked along the side of the road? When you woke up and you could barely open your eyes and there you were yet again, did you feel lonely? Did you feel lonely when you keep going in and out? And I thought the only term, the only definition that I could label my emotions was with the word lonely. That's the only word I could fit with the emotion. I said yes. The only emotion I had ever known was loneliness. And again, when the teacher is ready, the student appears, and sobriety began. Like Kelly, who starts out to be an alcoholic, we all have kind of a normal little upbringing, I guess. I grew up in Westchester, right by the LAX airport. I grew up in a very waspy, boring little family. I thought my family was very boring. I had 3 brothers, and my mother divorced my father when I was about 4 because he was an alcoholic. All I know is that he was a lot of fun. I thought my dad was so much fun. He was a 50s playboy. He was very cute. He had one of those bachelor pads that men had in the 50s and early 60s with the backlit scene of Hawaii behind the bar. And he drove a 1957 Chevrolet convertible. And Monday night was visitation night, and Dad would come to pick up me on Monday nights. And it was before we had seat belts, and I would stand next to my father in the passenger seat with my arm around his neck. And like I said, he was handsome, and he would have a cigarette in one hand and a bourbon in the other. And we'd go cruising down Manchester Boulevard, you know, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I was 5 years old. But I thought, God, this is fun, you know. And then we'd go down to the hotel because he would always be dating the big busted manicurist that worked there. And then before he dropped me off back at our house, at Mom's house, he would say, now, honey, we're just going to make a pit stop at the Melody Room on Sepulveda. It's still there. It's one of those bars that you know. There is no social drinking going on in those. It's like the Alibi and the Tattletale. And you see these people going in at 10 a.m. like they're having a little social drink. And that's how the Melody Room was. There was no social drinking going on. But I remember as a child thinking, this is really fun. I liked the lighting. The lighting was dark and moody, and everybody looked sort of more attractive. And I loved going with my dad to the Melody Room. I pass it every day, even now on the way to work. The good old Melody Room. And so I got it young that this is the happiest place on earth, and I would maybe come back there one day. But obviously, when you're a kid, you don't drink, you cope other ways. I mean, and as I told you, it talks about in our book, it said, we are people who are driven by 100 forms of fear, self-seeking, self-delusion, self-pity, a lot of self, you know. And I was a very weird child. They thought I was autistic. I may have been, who knows. All I know is I was a very energetic, crazy little kid, and I was very frightened also. And then I was also constantly focused on self, and not a fun place to be. So what I would do is, like Kelly was saying, is I discovered the world of fantasy. And I used to call it playing my adventure. And I would live in the world of fantasy for a long time. And in fact, when I was about 12, I had this punishment that my parents devised. It was called the white chair. And it was a white chair in the corner of the room, and they would send me there to think about how I would change my behavior and my attitude. And it was on the white chair that I learned how to have fun. I think that as alcoholics and drug addicts, we're very resourceful. I think we know how to survive. We're survivors. We may not survive with the right goods, but we know how to survive. And that was my first, like I said, drug. And so I began to fantasize. And when I say that I was in a fantasy from the age of 8 until about 18, I'm not kidding. But when I was about 13, I was a very good kid up to this point. I was a Girl Scout. I liked being a Girl Scout. I liked the idea of the green dress, you know, with the banner that had all of your accomplishments sort of sewn on. It worked for me. I liked it. Wear it today if I could, you know. But I was a very innocent kid. I was not a little hoodlum. I was very like I think we all are. I have this theory that we're so innocent and so sensitive that it's funny that we end up as, you know, practically gangsters. But I just think that we're so scared and innocent, really. So much. But anyway, when I was about 13, I got punished by my parents, and I went off the deep end. And I got so angry at them, and they got so angry at me. I cut off the ponytail, I quit the Girl Scouts, and I started ratting my hair up really, really high and wearing a lot of makeup. And I had this my new uniform, which is this short red tight skirt and this ruffled kind of ripped blouse, and I used to have runs in my stocking. I came back after that summer, and my appearance, I startled everybody when I came back because I looked so changed. Inside, I'm still the scared, neurotic little Girl Scout, but on the outside, I attracted an entire new group of friends. And they were the drug addicts of Westchester. And in particular was my boyfriend, who was the biggest drug addict in Westchester. And he was a lowrider. And I described how I looked. I fit right in. And he had a 1949 Oldsmobile with a gold metal flake top and hydraulic lifts. And we were lowriders. And we would go cruising up and down Manchester and Sepulveda, listening to the Doors and the Chambers Brothers, and get very stoned on hashish and downers and everything else that we did in those days, and acid. And we were drug addicts of the 60s. It's what you did. I mean, and if you didn't, there was really, truly something wrong with you. It is what you did. You know, as Sharon says it. You know, it wasn't just say no. It was just say thanks. You know, and that's what we did. You know, and we were we were little drug addicts. But I didn't drink. Now, the only reason I didn't drink is I didn't like it. I didn't like it, and someone had offered me a beer once, and I think I borrowed one of my dad's bourbons at one time, and I just hated it. And so I thought, well, that's good. I probably shouldn't drink since I was doing drugs like a lot. But when I was about 18, I went out with this one person who said to me one Friday night, I want you to impress my friends at this party. And I said, you know, I can't do that. I said, I just can't do that. He said, well, then get drunk. And I said, I don't drink. I don't like it. He said, oh, God. He said, would somebody give her something that she'll like? Find her something that she can drink. And his buddy said, I got it. And it was this stuff called Right Time. And it only stayed on the market, I think, for like 18 months or something. It was a carbonated malt liquor wine. And the ad line was, it's always the right time for right time. And it was good. I liked it. It was a carbonated hot pink, sort of cold ducky kind of thing, and I liked it. And I flipped off the bottle cap, and I held my nose, and I gagged down the first bottle, and the second, and the third. And from that moment till I told you when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I never drew a sober breath. That was my invisible line. That night, I was drunk from then on out. Because why wouldn't you be? Life is hard. Life is uncomfortable. I'm scared. This is liquid oxygen. It's cheap. It's legal. You can get it around the corner. Why stop? If you can feel good at 8 o'clock at night, you can feel just as good at 8 o'clock in the morning. You can feel good throughout your day. And therein became my life. And I became a wino, and that's all I ever drank. And I got to Gallo pretty quick, again, because it was even cheaper than Charles Krug, or whatever it was that I started on, the good stuff, which was like $3.49 a bottle or something. But $1.89 for a big bottle of Gallo. And I would always go to this liquor store called Danny's Liquor in Santa Monica. And I was beginning to get worried, though, day in and day out. Is Danny still there? Mm-hmm. I was beginning to get worried that Danny or his buddies would figure out that I had a drinking issue, in that I was buying such a large abundance of wine day in and day out. So I thought, well, maybe I should let Danny think I'm married. And what would married look like? Because if I'm married, my husband's doing this drinking, not me. So I thought, if I'm married, I have a husband. Okay, I know. So I would buy fictitious cans of shaving cream and Tiparillo cigars. Now, what I would do is I'd buy my Gallo. I would throw away the fictitious can of shaving cream, but I would keep this Tiparillos because not a bad smoke, so I would smoke those. But one day, Danny didn't buy the shaving cream thing, and he nudged his buddy from behind the counter. He said, "What are you going to do, Kay? Take it and go under the Venice Pier?" And I was like 21. I was so offended. I thought, oh, if he's not careful, he's going to lose my business. But I was so hurt, that total denial, because it never occurred to me to go under the pier. But I did what I did every day at lunch. I would get in my little Dodge Challenger, and I would drive to my favorite vacant parking lot and drive in figure eights by myself until I'd finished my lunch bottle. And then at night, my routine, just to close out my routine, I would always come home and again do the same thing day in and day out. I would get in full makeup to go to the Jack in the Box, which is where I ate dinner every night, on Manchester. The Jack in the Box to me is the alcoholic's greatest friend. And in those days, in the 70s, there were not a lot of drive-through restaurants. Jack was kind of it. And I remember that to go up to that plastic clown head in my drunken state every night and order what I ordered every night, which was a breakfast Jack and a cup of black coffee. I ordered it day in, day out for at least 2 years. But to do that was everything, all my dreams had come true. Those were my aspirations of a 22-year-old woman. Great. I've got my supplies. I'm going back to the fort. Back to the fort. I got my cigarettes, I got my Gallo, and I got my breakfast Jack. Locked the door, put on Joni Mitchell, and we're starting over again tomorrow. And that's what happened up until the day that I said, God help me. And like I said, I believe that if you're sitting here too, tonight, you had your own version of God help me, or you wouldn't be here. And, it's not that, I do believe, you hear people say that if you go out, we'll let you come back in. You bet. You'll always have an open hand when you come back into Alcoholics Anonymous. You can come back in again and again and again, and people will smile and say, keep coming back. And as you know, they'll let you keep coming back. The danger, it's not that we won't let you back. The danger, I think, because I've seen it happen with too many friends of mine, and I know how I am, I know how my mind works, and so I know this is true, just on my own thinking, is that there's a small window of opportunity. And when you get too sick, you don't see it. You don't hear it anymore. You don't hear, come on back, because you're that sick. I see clients sometimes downtown LA, and I'll be going downtown to see them, and I'm literally stepping over people that I know are me. That's me if I forget. They're laying in the street, they got their brown paper bag, and they got their little flask. I don't think for 1 minute that I'm better than them, because I know for a fact I've got the same disease they do. The difference with us and them is that we realize for this moment in time that this might be the answer for us, that we can't do what we used to do, or we're dead. And if we're not dead, we're probably going to wish we were. And again, here we are, and people, it's a very serious disease. And the longer I'm sober, the more I know that. And it's not because I've crossed the line into becoming mentally sane. I used to think if I work a program a long time, I'll become like normal. Never happened for me. This coming August, day at a time, I will be 30 years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, which means I have now been sober much longer than I even was alive. But everything I've learned about life, and by the way, of course, am still learning, is as a result of Alcoholics Anonymous. I used to look at people when I was new in particular, and I'd feel sorry for people that had there was a woman named Alabama. And I think then, she had 30 years, I used to think, first of all, how creepy, that people would stay around this long. It was eerie to me that people would stay around. And I thought, oh, how sad. How sad that she keeps coming to meetings and obviously doesn't have a life. And what I have found out, and what you're probably going to find out, or all of us do, is that it's because we still go to meetings and stay in this program that we have a life, or at least a life worth living. And it's interesting. I was thinking this the other day driving to work. I think we all, for me, speaking for myself, I go through periods in my life where I don't have anything I want. Everything's not going my way, and things are tough, and there's layoffs at work, or that the one that I'm in love with isn't in love with me back, and all those things that can happen to us. Then there's other times in our lives when everything is really good. And I'm in one of those right now, but what's interesting about it is this. The outside, everything's okay at the moment. You know, the job's okay, and the relationship's lovely, and everything is wonderful on the outside. But I was driving to work the other day, and I went on this family reunion, and I normally go to at least 3 or 4 meetings a week. And because of business obligations and this family thing, I'd only gone to 1. Now, I don't know about you, but if I don't go to my quota of meetings in a week, my thinking starts getting askew immediately. And it just starts getting ungrateful. I heard the most wonderful thing today at this meeting, and the speaker said today, it's very simple. He says, my ego is not my amigo. Is that great? I thought that was the most profound thing I've heard in a long time. My ego is not my amigo. But I was driving to work, this was last week, and I knew I hadn't been to enough meetings, and I thought, why am I not happy? I was driving to work, and I thought, I don't feel happy. I felt kind of scared, just not quite okay. You know that feeling of slight discontent? And I thought, what is wrong with me? And I thought, you know what's wrong with you. You didn't take the time this morning to get centered with your higher power, to ask God to help you be the K you need to be today. Because I've learned from many years in this program, I don't go out there in the world without all the tools that AA has to offer, because I can't. I just can't. And I thought, you better stop, and you better make sure you go to all the meetings that you need to go to, and you better get on your knees and you better pray before you go into that office today, because all hell will break loose if you don't. And what I mean by all hell will break loose is my attitude gets askewed. And when my attitude gets askewed, my perception is so off. Here's another thing. I was talk about perception. I recently got this car that I really wanted, and I've waited many years to get this particular car that I wanted, saved for a long, long, long time. And the interesting thing is I drive this particular car that I just got. Prior to getting it, I had this car that I hated. It's just a car, but you know how we are. It was a car that I hated. And I was driving to work, and we drive up this parking structure. It's 7 stories high. And it takes a long time to get up to the top of this. And as I'm driving, this is when I had the car that I hated, I'm looking around, and all I see are these really great cars. Like, this person has that, and I'm thinking, God, and they're like 20 years younger, and they have that great car. And I'm looking, and my perception, all I see are Beamers and Mercedes and just all these cars. That's all my eyes can see. And I'm thinking, I hate my car, but all right. But I'm handling it, no big deal. So then I finally get a car that I like. And it's not one of those, but it's still a nice car. So now I'm driving up, the first day I get it, I'm driving up the same parking structure, and I don't see any of those cars. All I'm seeing are old model vehicles. And I thought, how weird. And I thought, there's only one explanation for this. That's my perception. I see what my mind tells me to see. And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. I swear to you, I did not see one BMW driving up this thing. Everything I saw was an old, and I thought, that is your mind and your thinking. And my mind and my thinking to this day is askew all the time. And another guy said a very profound thing too. He said, never assume that time on this program is one of your tools. Because I don't know about you, but like I said, I secretly hope that I would, after a certain length of sobriety, I would cross that invisible line into normalcy. And it just hasn't happened. And I'm not upset about that, though, because the truth is, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. And as you heard Steve tonight and Kelly, we're just 3 members of the program that are just doing our little part to share and give back. You'll hear some other people tomorrow night, and you've heard other people last night. And what we keep saying is the same stuff. And I hear it every day. I need to hear it every day, though. I need to be reminded all the time. What's that other old joke about why do you think they read chapter? We have no memory. That's why we read chapter 5 at every single meeting. I need to be reminded every single day. And sometimes I'll hear something. Now, I've been hearing it for 29 years. But I'll hear something and think, wow. Or I'll hear a newcomer today at the meeting. She said, she was brand new. She had maybe a week of sobriety. And she said, I go to meetings because it keeps my fear level down. And I thought, that's why I go to meetings. I go to meetings because it keeps my fear level down. And if my fear level is down and I feel like I'm one of you, and we can go out there in the world and live and have a life that gets a lot bigger than just Jack in the Box on Manchester Boulevard and just Gallo at Danny's, and it starts getting bigger than that, we then have the goods to be able to not only live in the world, but be able to kind of be a participant. One more thing. When I was new, my very first meeting, and I was scared to death, my first meeting, and I was right in the middle of a huge anxiety attack, which, by the way, I had, I think, for my first 2 years in sobriety. It was one big anxiety attack. So when I would go to meetings in the early years, I would have to have one friend hold on to one wrist and another hold on to the other. But I heard the speaker say this one night. He said, "Life is now in session. Are you present?" And I remember thinking, no. But we get present here. We not only get present here, but the good news is you don't have to get present and go through the awkward times alone. You're with people that are just like you, doing the same things you have to do and telling you one step at a time, it's going to be okay. And if you're new here tonight, it's going to be okay. Thank you for letting me share.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.